So thank you for the previous speakers on a good overview of the CCPP and NHTS. I will talk about the Transportation Secure Data Center, which we host here at NREL's Transportation Center. And I think that the last couple of questions on location-specific data are maybe a good segue into this data center that we host. So the background and rationale for the TSDC is that with high resolution survey data, specifically GPS travel profiles, as MPO travel surveys have increasingly begun including GPS components or those geocoded trip-ins, can be really valuable for a lot of research questions, but are sensitive because of the privacy concerns and that the original survey participants are supposed to be anonymous. I have to apologize, outside my window here, they've just started a wood chipping operation, so hopefully that's not too distracting. So in order to resolve that issue between this data being very valuable for research, but having sensitivity around misuse, back in 2007, this NRC report was suggesting secure data enclave or secure data center being the best approach to try and resolve that dilemma, maximizing the benefit from the public funding that went into collecting the data and being useful for the entities that collected the data and that are providing the data into the central repository by removing the burden of doing so from them and being obviously useful for potential users of the data. So that's what led to the formation of the TSDC. It started up around 2009 with some internal NREL funding and has been supported since then, and at that time by DOT and the DOE. We're a Department of Energy National Research Lab, but have a history of hosting other similar secure data centers, and our users of this data ourselves for energy analysis is how we came to be hosts of the TSDC. This slide gives a summary of some of those other data centers related to transportation data that are hosted at NREL. The first one is really an information clearinghouse, and the other four are secure data centers that have sensitive data in one form or another. Starting with the National Fuel Cell Technology Evaluation Center, the sensitivity there is prototype vehicle and fueling station information that commercial partners and automakers are sensitive about the commercial sensitivity of the data, but DOE wants to monitor the progress of the technology, so NREL hosts a secure data center for that data. The next two, the TSDC I'm talking about here, and then Fleet DNA is analogous to the TSDC, but for the commercial vehicle side, there's medium and heavy duty drive cycle information from vehicles operating in fleets, where the fleets are sensitive to the operation of their specific vehicles, but we're very interested in evaluating advanced technology vehicles in those fleets, but also understanding travel behavior and drive cycle aggressiveness in fleets and how that affects the energy efficiency of commercial fleets. And then the last one is specifically a business intelligence tool for federal fleets. This slide gives an example of some of those energy-focused uses of these GPS driving profiles, where you get not just the origin and destination locations, but the specific speed and acceleration of the driving profiles in between. And we're able to use this combined with models of a conventional vehicle or hybrid or electric vehicle powertrains and look at the distributions of the energy efficiency of those over the driving profiles. I have here a link to a visual for what some of these data look like, where this shows an animation of the individual vehicle trajectories over the course of a travel day, just snipped out to a snapshot over a rush hour period of time, and then that video is looped. This is in the Atlanta area, a data set of about 1,600 people's daily travel profiles around Atlanta. to give a flavor for that particular data set. Obviously, beyond energy-related uses, there's lots of other uses for these data, and we make it available for external users to come in. And this is just one example, looking at day-to-day destination variation for a data set of households living in the California Bay Area, and looking at the on a global scale the variation in their destinations. And so this was a wearable subsample from this survey. You can see there's people, obviously a lot of travel around the Bay Area and California and the West Coast, but national and international destination points for the trips in this data set as well. And lots of other applications looking at travel time variability or day-to-day mode choice variability, things like that can be done, particularly with the multi-day versions of the data sets that are hosted. So a little more about the operating procedures for the Transportation Secure Data Center. Again, our goal is to maintain this balance focused on privacy protection first and foremost, but maximizing the usability of these data within those constraints. We have an advisory committee that helps support the oversight of our procedure development. It includes data collectors and providers of data, as well as end users of data, and has representation across private industry as well as university and various areas of the government. In developing the TSDC and the operating procedures, we referenced the other existing data centers that NREL hosts, as well as external examples to NREL, such as the Census Research Data Center program, where you're able to go and work with the sensitive data in a secure environment. The way that we've set it up is as a virtual data center where you don't have to physically travel to work in a secured environment, and I'll get into that a little bit more here shortly. As far as the data archiving, we establish agreements with the original collectors of the data, load them and store them on the servers here at NREL, and maintain the security and backup of the original data sets. We also do a fair amount of data processing. These data sets were all collected from a variety of different studies, and so have similar types of information that are collected, but different naming conventions and structures and whatnot. And so we put them all into a common organization for handling on our side and making them available. We're sure to remove anything explicitly identifying if the original providers of the data fail to do so before sending them to us, and then do quality control, particularly on where we have the GPS driving cycle trajectories. If we're going to use that for an energy analysis, obviously a spurious acceleration due to a point that drops out or is misrecorded has a big impact there. So we've developed a lot of procedures for filtering out the errant points in those drive cycles. We'll add reference information. A couple of the images there show temperature information, typical temperature information across the country and across a year. We add road grade using some commercial road grade data sets, as well as some techniques that we've developed for appending road grade from USGS digital elevation model data, with some filtering routines that we've developed and calibrated against some of the commercial road grade data products. And then demographic information comes with the survey, so we can also add information on land use and so forth for the areas where the data is collected. This shows just a snapshot of a paper where we summarize that GPS data filtration method to filter out points where you have a spurious acceleration or a data dropout or some hysteresis that needs to be smoothed out. This also shows just a quick illustration of the map matching we do to the underlying road network, and how we're able to do a pretty decent job between the data filtering and logic on the connectivity between links to attach data points to the road network, even where you have situations with complex interchanges and overlapping links on the underlying roadmap. As far as the data access goes, the procedures we developed in consultation with our advisory committee was to establish two distinct methods for data access. One is a cleansed or public download data area where we have a website with data sets posted on it. The idea by establishing that version of access is that there's a lot of people that are interested in aspects of the data that don't necessarily need the sensitive location information. So these data would include high-level information on total driving distances. It also includes the second-by-second time speed information without the latitude and longitude locations associated with the data points, which can be useful for the kind of dry cycle-based energy analysis that I mentioned. So again, latitude and longitude is removed. Other identifying details, our advisory committee recommended removing vehicle model, as that could get a little too precise with some types of vehicles. And it will also add supplemental information into this data, like travel by different types of roads. And even to access this data, we ask for point-and-click user registration and usage agreement, where someone pledges, the user pledges not to attempt to identify an individual, although in principle it shouldn't be possible to do so from that data. As I alluded to before, we've also established what we call our secure portal environment. We're working with the more detailed and spatial data where there's a higher level of sensitivity, again, modeled after secure data centers where you go in and work with the data there. But in this case, it's a virtual connection, so you can connect to a virtual machine here at NREL that hosts this environment. Some of the details on the process for that environment we have posted on our website there, the application packet for coming in and working within that environment. That includes a data use and disclaimer agreement that has to be signed. We developed it with our legal office here at NREL to include data protection, legal language, and an explicit pledge not to attempt to identify any individuals from the data set. Each individual user that would like an account on the environment needs to go through this process and sign this agreement that the accounts are not to be shared with each other. And we require a signature from both the applicant and a supervisor on the form, so two signatures for this form. We ask for an analysis description document describing what the proposed analysis is and specifically why the data in the secure portal environment is necessary to complete that analysis, why the cleansed data sets or other available data sets are insufficient to conduct the analysis. There's an additional form that our cybersecurity office requires anybody that's using NREL cyber resources has to sign off, and so that's an online form that happens during the course of the application process. And then after submitting those forms, our advisory group will review the application and provide a recommendation on data access. And some specific data providers like to be included on that review for data sets that they've provided. And then once somebody is granted access within the environment, they're prohibited from transferring data in and out. They can't share with their local clipboard or local drive access, and internet access is disabled. We provide software packages within the environment for users to interact with the data. And then as part of the analysis description document, we ask for a description of anything that the user would like to remove in the way of aggregated results. And then once they complete their analysis and generate that, we'll take a look, make sure it's consistent with their approved application, and then send those aggregated data tables or images to the users that have results aggregated such that individuals couldn't be identified from that data. This slide shows a quick snapshot of some of the examples of data sets hosted in the TSDC. A lot of these are GPS add-ons to a larger metropolitan planning organization's travel survey effort, where the GPS subsample helps them get at a trip underreporting and provide some of these other benefits of the more detailed GPS data collection. One of the bigger surveys we have in there was from the California statewide household travel survey a few years ago, and the full sample of roughly 43,000 households includes the geocoded trip-ins for all of those travel is also included in that secure portal environment that I've described. So that's what I've prepared to discuss. Again, for more information on the TSDC, I'd welcome anyone to visit the website. You can read about the project. We have fact sheets and publications that go into more details on the TSDC. You can sign up to receive email updates about the data center. We also have my email address there. Would welcome, particularly if you're interested in partnering on the project. We also have a dedicated tsdc@nrel.gov email address that if there's specific data questions or user support issues is the best thing to use for getting those answered. And if there's any questions now, I'd welcome the opportunity to try and address those.
Great, thanks. So this will be the last question and answer portion of the webinar. Please submit your questions into the questions box and the GoToWebinar interface. First question we have, what are the options if a researcher wants to use custom code or software to perform work in the secure portal environment?
Yeah, so if somebody has like a code or a script they've developed outside of the environment that they would like inside of it, they can just send that to us and then we can load it into their individual workspace within the environment. The software tools within the environment, you know, I'm just realizing I had meant to include a snapshot just of what the environment looks like, and I think somehow that slide got left out, so I apologize to it. We have software tools in the environment for querying the database, working with like SQL questionnaires. There's various GIS software packages in there. The one commercial package that we have is ArcGIS. We have QGIS and Python GIS linkages like Python XY that work in the environment as well. Because we're making this environment openly available, we're limited as to the commercial software packages that we can provide. So again, ArcGIS is the one commercial package, but the other things that we offer in there are for statistical analysis and various base maps. All come from free and open source sources, and so hopefully those can be sufficient for a user's needs, and we will frequently, if there's another, especially if it's an open source software package that someone is familiar working with and that they would like in the environment, we're able generally to add that within the environment as well.
Okay, thank you. Next question, what are reasons that an application to secure the or to use the secure portal environment might get declined?
Yeah, so typically the issues with that when applications come in, if someone is proposing to do something and they kind of fail to realize that the analysis could be conducted with the data that's posted on the public side, there would be pushback on that application. Or if the proposal is requesting to take out data that could on its own or combination with data from the public download site be used to identify an individual, then we would push back. In most cases, applicants are able to revise their research proposal to, for instance, remove data that would be sufficiently aggregated to alleviate those concerns, and we're able to work through that.